I'll put links to both channels at the bottom of my video. If y'all want to watch me, be sure to check me out there. Bum, ba bum 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 bum. Ladies and gentlemen, please give us a round of applause for the comedic stylings of White Liberal. What's the deal with Alabama? What is 20 foot long and has 5 teeth? The funnel cake line at the Alabama State Fair. What do you call a genius at Alabama? A visitor. What new law was recently passed in Alabama? When a couple gets divorced, they still are brother and sister. I was raised in Florida. Aww. Aw, thanks, but at least it wasn't Alabama.
So gender is just a social construct, and believing in God is a crutch. When you mix them together and give them a whirl, what do you got? Atheist T-Girl!
Hello everyone, it's Atheist T-Girl, also known as Alanis. Hello everyone, sorry to interrupt past me, but I forgot to mention 2 things. 1, I will be showing up on a Nuanced Nonsense show this Saturday at 8 p.m. And 2, I'll be providing color commentary with the Sinister Porpoise on a video called The 8 Commandments of Social Justice Warriors. That'll be 7 p.m. Wednesday the 10th, and that's Eastern Time. Today we're going to be talking about Alabama, but before we do that, it's time for...
There's a book you can read to your children that will make your job as a parent a lot easier. And that's in the opening chapters. Parents have been reading this book to their children for a very long time. This book, of course, is the Bible. And you don't have to be religious to read it, and your children don't have to be religious to enjoy it and get a whole lot out of it.
But you don't have to take my word for it.
Or how about the story of the brothers, Cain and Abel? Doesn't control his jealousy and kills Abel. Isn't that the kind of strength we want our children to emulate? We all have emotions and passions, but God has given us the tools to master those emotions and master us. The Bible also teaches children more effectively than... The Bible discourages decency, kindness, charity, selflessness, and sacrifice. Of course, the Bible is not merely a children's book. It's a library of wisdom for everyone.
Library.
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 Up until the 1960s, you could cite a Bible story and most people knew exactly what you were talking about. We're losing that connection. And that is a terrible shame and a profound cultural loss. Our goal should be to get back to that kind of biblical literacy. And it starts with our children. Your children. Read them a Bible story tonight. Who knows? You might learn a few things too. I'm Johnny Moore for Prager University.
So in case it's not obvious, I altered that video a little. I've included a link to the original one if you want to look at it. He is basically bemoaning the fact that we no longer use the Bible as a bedtime book, that you cannot understand Martin Luther King Jr. without the Bible, thinks that the book that is full of fratricide, incest, beheadings, is a good nighttime story for your kids. Well, now on to the main part of our show, Alabama. It's easy to look at the state of Alabama and see there are problems. When I turn my eyes north, I see a government of Alabama making terrible decisions one after another that has Florida man saying, damn. Creating one of the strictest abortion laws, which will cost their state millions to defend. Granting a church/school the right to create a police department with full arrest powers. Prosecuting a pregnant woman who was shot and then miscarried with manslaughter. Side note, right before I started filming this, I saw that she is no longer going to be prosecuted. So, a slight win, yay. I see a state heading to a place where less fortunate citizens are going to have an even harder time than what they do now. Then looking to the left, what we see isn't a wave of sympathy and work geared towards fixing the issue. Instead, we see jokes about it just being Alabama. You know, it's Alabama, that stuff happens there. As an example of our country and the left view of the state, here's some replies I saw to an article about 4 mega wasp colonies being found in Alabama. The hives are not there because Alabama wants them, but are instead there because of the climate changing, something well beyond just one state's ability to fix. A lot of people on my side of the political divide have the opinion that if you don't like Alabama, then vote, or educate yourself, get better jobs, or just move. Those who are left in the state are those who deserve to deal with whatever problems our legislators cause. But as we begin to look further at the options given, we find that they are not ones that help. Vote. Currently, the Alabama state legislature is 28 Democrats, 75 Republicans, and 2 vacancies. The Senate has 27 Republicans and 8 Democrats. Of adults, 52% are Republican, 35 are Democrat, and 13 are independent. Between 2007 to 2014, the amount of Republicans in the state has increased over the amount of Democrats. For comparison, in 2007, it was 45% Republican and 42% Democrat. I have run for election, and let me tell you that a large deficit like this is not one you can win against very easily, or at all. We could tell Democrats to vote till the cows come home, and it's not going to make a difference with the current political makeup in Alabama. 2 years ago, there was a special election for a U.S. Senate seat in Alabama. The Democrat, Doug Jones, won with a 1.7% lead. His opponent, Roy Moore, had been charged with having sex with a minor, and yet, with this hanging over his head, still almost won, because he was simply a Republican. By the way, good news, Moore will be running for Senate in 2020. Anyone want to bet against him? Voting their way out of this mess is not an option for a lot of the people whom the government is hurting with their decisions. Education. Well, voting isn't the way out of the mess, education must be. After all, most of the voters are white in Alabama. And exit polls and surveys show that if a white person has a college degree, they are more likely to vote for Democrats. It may take a while, but if we work at it, we could theoretically educate Alabama to a point where it would change its government. But about that. Currently, some school rankings of both grade and college education has Alabama as the bottom state. I don't mean it's near the bottom. I mean it is the bottom. When we look at specifically high school graduation rates, Alabama is not the worst here. In fact, they are about 89%, which seems to be slightly over the national average. However, when you factor in the fact that the quality of education is the worst in the United States, the numbers after high school start to look a little bit more bleak. Only 62.1% of the students that graduate high school go on to continue their education in college. This is below the national average, and while Alabama is not in last place here, it is in the lower half of the United States. Then when in college, only 25.9% of students graduate in 4 years, and 49.5% graduate in 6 years. This puts them 15 from the bottom. If one was curious about why these numbers might be happening, it wouldn't hurt to look at the amount of money Alabama pays into education. The average salary of a teacher in Alabama is $50,810, and this puts them 12th from the bottom. Florida, you might want to pay attention, as currently they are paying more than us, and this might be a prediction of what our future looks like. Spending per child is $9,236 per year as of 2016. The amount spent since then has increased, but it appears to be the same amount of increase that other states went up by. Alabama will not be educating themselves out of their current government. Better job. Well, then the next step is to get a better job. Work your way to the top of the dog heap. Not to put too much of a fine point on it, but laws like the abortion law that was passed do not affect the well-off as much as they do the poor. The same with election ID laws and a passel of other laws that states like Alabama have passed. But the previous section should give you a bit of a pause. If this is a state that doesn't have the best education, then what kind of jobs are available? If we look strictly at the unemployment rates, the picture isn't that bad. Out of the 50 states, there are only 16 that are doing better than Alabama with having a low unemployment rate. But having a job is only part of what we should look at. In addition to being employed, looking at how much one is being paid is just as important. And Alabama is in the bottom 10 when it comes to pay adjusted per cost of living. They are working, but they are not getting paid for it in a way that would help them increase their position in life. Move. That leaves moving as the final answer. If you are someone who is liberal or someone who might be adversely affected by the radicalization of Alabama government, the best thing might be just to move. Why put up the stress of living in a city and state that swings strongly against you and what you support? And I'm sure the millennials watching this video have the same answer that I have. With what money? I have lived in this apartment for 5 years. I've put up with roach infestations. Thankfully they are gone. Thin walls with no insulation to the point where I can touch my interior wall and feel the sun. And an AC layout that wasn't planned right. My kitchen has no counter space, and there are signs of painted over distress all throughout my apartment. But I have not moved. Because before this apartment, I was in the fun position of moving 6 times in about a 3-year period. And I still remember the cost and pains in doing so. The first and last month deposits for light, water, pet deposits, cleaning fees, truck rentals, boxes, and tape. These are just a few of the expenses I had to deal with. And that was just moving within the same city. When you talk about leaving Alabama, you then get into expenses involved in checking out neighborhoods states away, possibly finding new jobs, tax changes, and a whole host of other issues. And most of us cannot afford this. In fact, most of America cannot afford to miss one paycheck. Moving to another state is just a smaller version of the well-to-do's white privilege we saw back when Trump was elected. People were saying, oh, I'll move to Canada, and some of them did. But a lot of us couldn't afford that. We're still here. Also, people moving away from Alabama have helped contribute to the right swing we see in the state. So what can we do when we see the state of Alabama trying really hard to get the Darwin Award? Well, joking about them doesn't help. Telling them to move doesn't help. There are 2 things that will help. 1, money. Give to organizations and groups that are making a change in Alabama. I'm not necessarily talking about money to politicians, which, while needed, with the current party gap, it's a bad investment. Instead, pay the people who are making a difference. I mentioned that Alabama will spend millions trying to defend their abortion ban. Who will be making them pay these millions, and who will be fighting this ban? It won't be the Democratic legislators. It will be a group like Planned Parenthood. who will be educating students and helping them get into a college that will make a difference. After-school programs and education assistance. These are the places where you should be putting your money. And second, and this one's a bit more frightening, move to Alabama. The simple matter is that people of the left have fled Alabama and helped it grow into a red haven for the right wing. The main way to switch this back is for more people with the means to do so to move to Alabama and to help fight for it. Not to abandon the state like a puddle of radioactive waste. I started with some jokes from a white liberal. They were a riot, weren't they? Well, let me end with some jokes. What do you call a person with no options but servitude for the future? A pregnant teen in Alabama. What do you call a student who protests his school's homophobic policies? Prisoner 1521. And all the people who need help in Alabama say, "Who's there?" Thank y'all everyone for watching. I hate smiling after saying all this not so happy stuff about Alabama, but I still want to smile at the end of my videos because they're still good in the world. If you liked what you see, please subscribe. Be sure to share this video. Be sure to ring, ring, ring that bell so that you get notified when I put up new videos. YouTube, work on that, please. If you'd like to talk to me more, you can find me on Twitter at atheist_T_girl. I welcome your comments on my videos. Again, I have a standing policy that if there's any transphobic or homophobic statements, I will delete them. People in the LGBTQIA+ have to deal with that too much in the real world. I can mod my comments and make sure that they're safe here. And as always, I hope y'all all have a great day. I almost forgot to say, I want to thank the faithless Southerner for helping me come up with this idea for a video. He didn't say anything to me to make me come up with a video, but watching him talk about Alabama gave me some ideas. I'm going to put a link to his YouTube and Twitter in my crotch bar, as Bionic Dance puts it, and be sure to check him out and subscribe. Thank you.